Avatar Fire and Ash predictably did very well in the box office, marking the completion of a trilogy of Avatar films that have all done remarkably well financially. There are plenty of debates around these movies, most notably whether they have had any real cultural impact, and, most strangely, over whether the series will see a continuation with an Avatar 4 and 5. Frankly, I can see no reason why they wouldn't want to make them, given that regardless of whether the movies have long-lasting impressions regarding their plot, an Avatar movie release feels like an international event, and certainly generated revenue like one. What I want to discuss today is relative to these things, but it isn't this exactly. What I want to talk about is what I think the greatest weakness of the Avatar trilogy is. Now, the weakness itself is obvious in a broad sense. The weakest part of these movies is the story itself that unfolds across each of the three movies, which we should, and indeed we must, consider equally as three relatively standalone movies. What I'm trying to say here is Avatar the series, Avatar 1, Avatar 2, Avatar 3, we can consider them all in their own right. The Avatar stories are serviceable. They go from A to B to C, and I think generally they aren't as watered down as people like to pretend they are. The general audience might have you thinking that watching an Avatar movie is just watching blue people jump around for 3 hours. Whilst there is admittedly a lot of blue people leaping, the Avatar movies generally have a couple of things going for them, most notably their themes, with particular strength regarding environmentalism and questions on tribal culture, assimilation, unity, and belonging. They also do have strong character work, sparse as it may be. They are shallow in places. Don't hear this and think that I believe these movies to be masterpieces. But they do have the basics. So what do I think the issue actually is? They made the same movie 3 times. That's the problem. Allow me to explain. The crux of Avatar, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing, is the exploration of a new culture and semi-assimilation into it, at least semi-assimilation. For reasons relating to personal gain, our characters find themselves amongst a new people, a new place, a new culture. They become enamored with it and seek to engage with it. They learn much. And though they struggle fully grasping things at first, they become a standout member within this new community. And, whilst remaining in part the person they always were, they become something new. Something connected to the journey that had led them there, and the people who aided them along the way. Maybe they even find love, or lead their new people in a great act of defiance, particularly amongst a great battle. So which movie does this apply to? Avatar, The Way of Water, or Fire and Ash? The answer is all of them. Think about it. Take a moment and think about it. Obviously, in the original movie, we follow Jake Sully on this specific journey. When he joins the Avatar program, it's through the misfortune of his brother's death, and he only joins due to the inherently personal reasoning of potentially being able to use his legs again. Understandable, reasonable, but deeply personal. But Jake turns out to be someone who holds a great fascination for the Na'vi way of life. The prior description describes this experience to a T. In the second movie, it is the Sully family who must follow the same path, as they learn to live like the aquatic tribe of the Metkayina, or their personal agenda of seeking safety as refugees. Again, reasonable, understandable, but deeply personal. In the movie, Jake even relates their journey from the forest to the sea as a parallel to his own journey from one of the sky people to one of the forest people. Though it is Jake who will eventually lead them into the final battle, it is Lo'ak who becomes the trailblazer for the new generation. Notably, Lo'ak has trouble adjusting to the clan at first, and even somewhat of a masculine rivalry with the chief's sons, and a romantic relationship with the chief's daughter, Soraya. Sound familiar? Jake's relationship with the Omatakaya's leading figures, his masculine rivalry with Sute, due to being the next clan leader, and romantic involvement with the chief's daughter, Neytiri. There's even a sense of the slightly distant but commanding and patriarchal presence of Atu Khan in Tonawari. I don't think this was by accident either. When I watch these movies, I instinctually get a sense that there was a gearing up of Lo'ak to work as this parallel to Jake, the lesser brother of one who was much more befitting of their superiors' expectations. Neteyam fills a surprisingly similar role to Tom Sully. Though Jake has mostly grown out of it by the time of The Way of Water, it certainly would not be out of pocket to describe the first movie's Jake as a loose cannon, a touch wild, occasionally reckless, and more willing to trust in his instinct and feeling, allowing him to do a great good and connect with the natural world around him. In many ways, I think that Lo'ak fills this same role in The Way of Water and displays these characteristics. If you understand Lo'ak to be a parallel to Jake, It shouldn't be a stretch of the imagination to see Colonel Miles Quaritch as something similar. Quaritch is a bit of a strange character to discuss and look at across all three films. In the original, he's a clear foil to Jake. Both characters are inherently defined by their military background, but also by their fascination with Pandora. They both speak of it in a grandiose manner and harbour a rooted interest in the strange way in which the planet functions. But where Jake's fascination leads to an interest in understanding and assimilation with the unknown and the other, Quaritch's fascination warps into a challenge, a visceral, violent need to conquer it and tame it. In the second movie, we see a version of Quaritch who is forced to assimilate, at least to a certain degree, as he inhabits an avatar body. And yes, I am aware that technically this Quaritch is a clone, but for all intents and purpose, his consciousness was duplicated, so save from becoming Neytiri's pincushion, there's not much disconnect between end of Avatar Quaritch and beginning of Way of Water Quaritch. In this movie, Quaritch embraces part of what Jake had in more or less the first 5 minutes of Jake being in his own avatar body. The innate physical and tactical advantages of being on Pandora in a Na'vi body. He connects with an Ikran and learns the language, for example, but he doesn't truly understand what it means to assimilate, at least not yet. And that's because in Fire and Ash, it's actually Quaritch's turn, as he assimilates to the Mang Quan. We see this very literally with the donning of war paint and the physical change of outfit throughout the movie, fitting for a character with such strong physicality. Quaritch leads the Mang Quan into battle and engages with their cultural practices, coming to understand them. It starts with his desire for a further advantage over Sully, and a desire to grow his strength by winning over the Mang Quan. Again, very personal reasons, though this time maybe a little bit less understandable, or reasonable. But by the end of the movie, Quaritch is one of them. He even finds a slightly twisted romantic interest in Varang, neatly fitting into this pattern. Like Jake and Loak before him, he ends the movie fundamentally changed. Obviously, these are not the only storylines of note in these movies. Grace's research and devotion from the first movie evolves into Kiri's storyline in the second and the third. Just as Jake and Loak's relationship is a point of interest in the two latter movies, so is Spider's and Quaritch's. And amongst it all, Neytiri battles with conflicted feelings regarding her own family and an alien race. It's these factors that, when they mature in Fire and Ash, make that movie of general interest to me. But I just couldn't shake the prominence of the patterns shown in Jake, Loak, the Sullys, generally speaking, and Quaritch. It's not inherently bad, but if the next movie has a character that follows the same stock plot that seems to pervade the Avatar series, I think it would only detract. The parts of Fire and Ash that I enjoyed the most were those that broke this mould, even in the case of characters who had been through it, such as Jake and Loak. Their scenes were much stronger in the third movie, given that they had finally been able to grow beyond that simple plot skeleton. Of course, I do think this feeds the perception that these movies are lacking some form of substance, and likely this is the reason for so many people reaching that conclusion without actually knowing why. But I do want to hear from you. What do you think? Does the topic of this video make sense to you? Have you considered it before? Or do you maybe disagree? Feel free to comment and subscribe if you'd like to see more topics like this. Thank you for your time and have a wonderful day.